Have you ever felt like you were at a crossroads in life, desperately looking for guidance but not sure where to go? What if I told you that the answers you have been looking for may be right in front of you, through the people you know, the conversations you have, and even the strangers you come across every day? In today's video, we are diving deep into a powerful truth. God speaks to us through others, and it is time to start recognizing these divine signs. If you are someone who is looking for more meaningful relationships or facing a big life decision, this video is for you. So before we start, take a moment to enjoy this video if you're ready for clarity, and subscribe to our channel for more insights like this that could change your life. Now, let's explore how to discern divine guidance in people around us and how it can transform their relationships and decisions. Every person we encounter brings something unique into our lives, whether it's support, challenge, or inspiration. When we start to see each relationship through a spiritual lens, we might notice that these connections are not just random or incidental. They often serve a purpose, sometimes one that aligns with a bigger plan. This chapter is about exploring how, in moments of uncertainty or growth, certain people seem to be placed in our path, guiding us toward answers we didn't even know we were looking for. Many of us crave meaningful connections, especially during times of struggle or when facing life's pivotal decisions. Think about it. Those who offer guidance and insight often appear just when we're at a crossroads. Maybe it's a friend who brings unexpected comfort in a time of grief, or a mentor whose wisdom illuminates a path forward when we're struggling with career or personal choices. These aren't mere coincidences. They're moments when others act as messengers, perhaps even fulfilling a divine purpose. In the Bible, we see countless examples of God placing people together for specific reasons, using relationships as channels to communicate wisdom, support, and direction. Imagine, for example, the story of Moses and Aaron. When Moses felt unqualified to lead the Israelites, Aaron was there to support him, to help him find the courage to embrace his role. Or consider Ruth and Naomi's relationship, where love and loyalty carried them through difficult times and shaped their futures in profound ways. These are powerful reminders that God can use the people in our lives to offer strength, perspective, and encouragement just when we need it most. In our own lives, these divinely placed relationships can act as anchors, helping us stay grounded during turbulent times or even propelling us toward new opportunities. They can also be mirrors, reflecting back aspects of ourselves that we might not see otherwise. This perspective allows us to recognize that the people who come into our lives may serve a purpose beyond what meets the eye. Some may guide us, others may challenge us, and still others might lead us to growth in unexpected ways. When we begin to understand relationships this way, we start to see each person not as a random presence but as someone with a unique role in our journey. The challenge, however, is often in recognizing these relationships and their significance in the moment. We may dismiss helpful advice as mere opinion, overlook acts of kindness, or ignore challenging feedback as criticism. But what if, instead, we approached each relationship as though it has the potential to be a divine encounter? This shift in perspective could lead us to uncover messages we might have otherwise missed. As we move forward, we'll explore practical ways to be more aware of these relationships and begin seeing them for what they truly are: potential avenues of divine wisdom, guiding us, comforting us, and helping us grow closer to God's purpose for our lives. Sometimes the guidance we need doesn't come in loud proclamations or grand gestures, but in the quiet moments, hidden within everyday conversations. We might not realize it, but God often speaks to us through the words of others. Those subtle, seemingly casual comments that can carry immense significance when we truly listen. This chapter is about learning to tune into these ordinary exchanges and uncovering the profound messages they may hold. Picture this. You're catching up with an old friend, and they share a story about their recent experiences that strangely resonates with a question you've been grappling with. Or perhaps a coworker casually suggests a new perspective on a challenge you're facing, sparking clarity you didn't expect. These moments are easily brushed off as random coincidences or small talk, but what if they're more than that? What if, in these everyday exchanges, God is speaking to you, offering guidance, support, or reassurance? In moments of uncertainty or transition, we're often more open to receiving guidance, even if we don't realize it. Think about a time when you were dealing with a difficult decision and a friend's advice, or even a stranger's comment, seemed to address exactly what you were struggling with. That experience is what many describe as a divine nudge, where someone else's words align so perfectly with your needs that it feels almost supernatural. This is often how God's voice reaches us. Not with thunder and lightning, but with gentle, timely words that echo within us. To recognize these divine messages, we must cultivate a spirit of attentiveness. This means approaching conversations with a sense of openness and curiosity, even if the interaction seems trivial. Ask yourself, what might God be trying to show me through this person? It's not about overanalyzing every word, but rather being receptive to the possibility that any conversation could hold something meaningful. When we adopt this mindset, we may start to notice recurring themes or unexpected insights that resonate deeply with our current life situation. For instance, if you find that different people are giving similar advice or that certain phrases keep coming up in various conversations, pay attention. These repeated messages could be clues, encouraging you toward a particular direction. Sometimes the same words or ideas echoing from multiple sources is no accident. It's a form of divine reinforcement, like God gently guiding you in a specific way through the voices around you. To put this into practice, try making a habit of reflecting on the day's conversations at night. Ask yourself if anything stood out, felt unusually significant, or seemed to provide clarity on something you were previously uncertain about. Over time, you'll likely become more attuned to these messages, building a heightened awareness that allows you to discern when God is speaking through the words of others. In the next section, we'll discuss how to differentiate these divine nudges from mere coincidence, giving you tools to recognize when a conversation might be more than just words, and when it could be a message intended just for you. One of the biggest challenges in recognizing God's guidance through others is learning to differentiate between what is a divine sign and what is simply a coincidence. It's easy to brush off moments that could be spiritually significant as nothing more than chance. Yet, when we take a step back and reflect, we may realize that there's often more to these moments than we initially thought. In this chapter, we'll explore how to discern between divine guidance and mere coincidence, helping you better understand when God is truly speaking to you. The first thing to consider is the sense of peace and clarity that often accompanies divine guidance. When God speaks to us through others, it typically brings a deep sense of peace, something that feels right deep within us, even if we're unsure of the exact path forward. These moments often come with a sense of calm certainty that guides us through confusion. In contrast, coincidences are usually fleeting moments that may feel more like chance. While coincidences can be interesting, they don't often carry the same sense of spiritual weight that we experience with divine signs. Another way to differentiate divine guidance from coincidence is by reflecting on the context of the message. Often, when God is speaking through someone else, the advice or insight will be perfectly timed. It will come when you're struggling with a decision, at a moment of vulnerability, or when you're seeking answers to a question. This timing is not accidental. Divine signs seem to show up exactly when we need them most, providing clarity just when we are searching for direction. If a piece of advice or an encouraging word arrives at just the right time, it's more likely a sign from God than a random event. Additionally, divine signs often align with deeper themes or patterns in our lives. They speak to something larger than just the immediate issue at hand, offering guidance that resonates with your greater purpose. For example, if you've been praying for clarity on a career decision, and multiple people in your life, each from a different angle, offer advice that points in the same direction, this repetition is not just coincidence. It's a sign that God is reinforcing a message through multiple sources. These signs may even align with long-standing themes in your life, values or goals that have always been part of your journey. If the message feels like it's tapping into something deeper within you, it's a strong indicator that it's more than mere chance. However, it's important to note that not every encounter or conversation will necessarily carry divine significance. Sometimes our own desires and emotions can cloud our perception, leading us to overinterpret situations or seek meaning where it doesn't exist. This is where discernment becomes crucial. To truly differentiate divine signs from coincidences, it helps to take a step back, reflect, and ask God for clarity. Praying for wisdom in these moments can help you recognize when the guidance you've received is truly from Him and not just a projection of your own thoughts. In addition to prayer, take some time for introspection. Reflect on your current life circumstances, struggles, and questions. Does the advice or interaction align with your current needs? Does it bring you peace or does it leave you feeling unsettled? Trust your inner sense of peace as a guide. Divine messages often bring a sense of calm that settles deep within your heart. Finally, as we move to the next section, remember that recognizing divine signs takes practice. The more we learn to tune into God's voice, the more we'll begin to see that these divine nudges are all around us, waiting to be heard, felt, and acted upon. In order to recognize divine signs in the everyday interactions and relationships around us, we need to cultivate a deeper spiritual awareness. This means tuning in to the subtle ways God communicates with us, not just through grand gestures, but in the small, seemingly insignificant moments that make up our daily lives. Cultivating this awareness requires intentionality, patience, and a willingness to listen. It's about developing a deeper sensitivity to the presence of God in all things, which allows us to discern His guidance, even when it comes in unexpected forms. One of the first steps in cultivating spiritual awareness is to create space for God in our daily lives. When we rush through our days, overwhelmed by responsibilities, distractions, and the noise of the world, it's easy to miss the quiet whispers of divine guidance. Taking time to pause, pray, and reflect can help us tune out the distractions and become more receptive to the ways God is speaking. Whether it's through morning devotionals, meditation, or simply moments of silence during the day, intentionally carving out time for God allows us to develop a closer connection and awareness of His presence. Another way to cultivate spiritual awareness is by seeking out God's presence in the ordinary. This means viewing each interaction, whether with a close friend, a family member, or even a stranger, as an opportunity to hear God's voice. Start to view each moment not just as a chance encounter but as a potential divine message. By opening our hearts to this perspective, we begin to see that God is always speaking, even in the most mundane interactions. The key is to remain open, receptive, and attentive to the people and situations around us. In doing so, we'll start to notice how God's presence weaves through our lives, often in the most unexpected places. To further enhance spiritual awareness, it's helpful to regularly reflect on the moments when God has spoken to us in the past. Think back to times when advice, guidance, or encouragement from others helped you make important decisions or gave you a sense of direction. Reflect on the peace and clarity you felt in those moments. Recalling these past experiences not only strengthens our faith in God's ability to guide us but also reminds us that He is always present, working through others in our lives. Keeping a journal of these reflections can be a powerful tool, helping us to track the ways God speaks to us and reinforcing our awareness of divine guidance in the future. In addition to reflection, prayer is a crucial part of cultivating spiritual awareness. When we pray for clarity, wisdom, and understanding, we invite God into our decision-making process. Prayer helps us align our hearts and minds with God's will, making it easier to recognize His voice when He speaks. It's in the quiet moments of prayer that we often receive the peace and insight we need to understand the messages coming from the people around us. Prayer also strengthens our relationship with God, allowing us to become more attuned to the ways He speaks to us through others. Furthermore, it's important to trust in the process of spiritual awareness. This is not a skill that is developed overnight, and it takes time to fine-tune our ability to recognize divine signs. We may not always understand the messages we receive or why certain people come into our lives at specific moments. But by maintaining an open heart and a spirit of patience, we allow ourselves the space to grow in our ability to hear God's voice through the people and situations around us. As we move forward, remember that spiritual awareness isn't just about recognizing God's guidance through others. It's about recognizing His presence in every aspect of our lives. The more we cultivate this awareness, the more attuned we will become to the subtle ways God is speaking, guiding, and directing us. Now that we've explored how to recognize divine guidance in everyday conversations, the next step is understanding how we can foster relationships that act as channels for this guidance. Building deeper, more meaningful connections with others can enhance our ability to receive divine wisdom and share it. When we cultivate relationships grounded in trust, love, and understanding, we create environments where God's messages can flow freely, whether it's through words of advice, acts of service, or simply being present for one another. The first key to building stronger relationships is creating openness. When we close ourselves off to others, we block the opportunity for God to use them as instruments of guidance in our lives. Vulnerability and openness allow us to be receptive to what others have to offer, both in terms of wisdom and support. This doesn't mean we need to share every detail of our lives with everyone, but it does mean being open to the possibility that the people around us may have something valuable to offer. Building trust is also essential in creating relationships that can serve as channels for divine guidance. Trusting someone allows us to listen more attentively to their words and actions, which opens the door for them to speak into our lives. Trust forms the foundation for all meaningful relationships, and it's often through trusted individuals that we receive the most profound insights. Consider the relationships in your life that have had the most impact. More often than not, these are the ones where trust and openness were at the core. In addition to openness and trust, it's important to actively engage in the lives of others. Relationships are a two-way street, and just as we hope others will offer us guidance, we must also be willing to give our time, attention, and support in return. This mutual exchange creates an environment where divine wisdom can flow both ways as we share our experiences and perspectives with one another. By becoming more present in the lives of others, we not only strengthen our connections but also position ourselves to receive the guidance we need when the time comes. Building relationships that serve as channels for divine guidance also requires intentionality. It's not enough to simply wait for wisdom to come to us. We must actively seek out relationships that nurture our growth and spirituality. This means surrounding ourselves with people who share similar values, who are willing to speak truth into our lives, and who encourage us to live with purpose. Whether it's through close friends, family, mentors, or even a faith community, we need relationships that inspire us to be our best selves and draw us closer to God's will. However, it's important to remember that not all relationships will serve this purpose, and that's okay. There will be some relationships that are more about companionship, fun, or shared experiences rather than guidance. These relationships still have value, but when we're seeking divine wisdom, it's important to be discerning about which relationships we prioritize for deeper spiritual connection. Lastly, as we build these relationships, it's essential to give God the space to work through us as well. We may find ourselves in a position where we are called to be the voice of guidance for others, offering wisdom or encouragement when they need it most. In these moments, it's important to remember that God is using us just as He uses others. Our words and actions may be the very guidance someone else is seeking, and this reciprocal relationship of sharing divine wisdom strengthens the community of believers. By building relationships that are intentionally grounded in love, trust, and openness, we not only position ourselves to receive guidance but also become conduits through which God's wisdom can flow. As we continue to develop these connections, we'll discover that the guidance we seek is already present in the people around us, waiting for us to open our hearts to it. Prayer is one of the most powerful tools we have in recognizing divine guidance. When we approach God in prayer, we not only communicate our desires, fears, and needs but also open ourselves to receive wisdom, clarity, and direction. Prayer helps us align our hearts with God's will, allowing us to hear His voice more clearly when He speaks to us through the people around us. In this chapter, we'll explore the vital role prayer plays in our ability to recognize and respond to divine messages. The first aspect of prayer that aids in recognizing divine guidance is its power to calm our hearts and minds. In moments of uncertainty, anxiety, or confusion, prayer creates a space for peace and clarity to enter. When we're overwhelmed with decisions or struggling to make sense of a situation, prayer can help us quiet the noise of the world and tune into the whispers of God's voice. The more we practice prayer as a means of seeking guidance, the more attuned we become to God's voice in all areas of our lives, especially through the words and actions of others. One of the key benefits of prayer is that it helps us align our desires with God's will. Often, our own desires and biases can cloud our judgment, leading us to interpret conversations and situations in ways that confirm what we want to hear rather than what God is truly guiding us toward. Through prayer, we invite God to reveal His will for our lives and remove any distractions or misconceptions that might distort our perception. When we pray with an open heart and mind, we become more willing to accept God's direction, even if it challenges our preconceived notions or desires. In addition to aligning our hearts with God's will, prayer also strengthens our spiritual sensitivity. Just as a muscle becomes stronger through regular exercise, our ability to recognize divine guidance sharpens the more we engage in prayer. When we regularly seek God's wisdom in prayer, we begin to develop a deeper sensitivity to His presence. We start to recognize His voice not just in moments of intense prayer but in the everyday interactions and relationships we have with others. Prayer nurtures our ability to discern God's voice through the advice, counsel, and support we receive from those around us. Another way prayer enhances our ability to recognize divine guidance is by giving us the courage and faith to act on the insights we receive. Often, God will speak to us through the words of others, offering guidance or answers to our prayers. However, it's not always easy to take the next step or follow through on the guidance we receive. Prayer strengthens our faith and trust in God, helping us to move forward with confidence, knowing that He is leading us. When we pray for courage and strength, we are better equipped to follow the divine nudges we receive, even when they seem challenging or uncertain. Lastly, prayer helps us stay connected to God, ensuring that we remain open and receptive to His guidance at all times. In our busy lives, it's easy to become disconnected from God, neglecting our spiritual practices or allowing distractions to take precedence. Regular prayer keeps us grounded in God's presence and allows us to stay in tune with His guidance. When we maintain this connection, we are better able to recognize when God is speaking through the people around us, whether they're offering us advice, encouragement, or insight. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to act on the guidance we receive through prayer and the words of others. Recognizing divine messages is just the first step. The next challenge is stepping out in faith and trusting God's direction. Prayer is a key element in helping us do just that, as it strengthens our confidence and conviction to follow where He leads. Recognizing divine guidance is only half of the journey. The real challenge lies in acting on it. After we've identified the signs, whether through conversations, prayer, or moments of clarity, we must take the bold step of following through. Often, the guidance we receive requires us to take risks, step out of our comfort zones, and trust that God's plan for us is better than anything we could imagine on our own. In this chapter, we'll discuss how to act on divine guidance with courage, faith, and conviction, transforming the wisdom we receive into meaningful action. The first step in acting on divine guidance is to acknowledge that it may not always be what we expect. Sometimes, God's direction may challenge our personal desires or make us feel uncomfortable. We may want to stay in familiar situations, avoid difficult conversations, or ignore calls to change. But divine guidance often calls us to go beyond what is easy or familiar, pushing us to grow and expand in new directions. The key to following through is trusting that God knows what is best for us, even when the path ahead feels uncertain. One of the greatest obstacles in acting on divine guidance is fear. Fear of failure, fear of the unknown, and fear of making the wrong decision can all paralyze us from taking action. It's in these moments that our faith is tested. But it's also in these moments that God's presence is most evident. When we act in faith, even with fear in our hearts, we allow God to work through us in powerful ways. We must remember that faith is not the absence of fear, but the courage to act despite it. God promises that He will guide our steps when we trust in Him, and His faithfulness will carry us through every step of the journey. A key aspect of acting on divine guidance is learning to take small steps of obedience. While the big decisions may seem daunting, often God's direction comes in manageable, incremental steps. Rather than feeling overwhelmed by the need to make a major life change all at once, we can focus on the small, faithful actions that lead us toward that larger goal. For instance, if you've received guidance to start a new career, the first step may not be to quit your job immediately but to begin networking, learning new skills, or exploring potential opportunities. By taking small, obedient steps, we build confidence and trust in God's guidance, knowing that each step will lead us closer to the destination He has prepared for us. Prayer continues to be a crucial part of acting on divine guidance. Just as we turn to God for clarity and direction, we must also turn to Him for strength and courage to take action. Through prayer, we can seek reassurance and comfort when the path seems unclear or difficult. When we pray before taking a significant step, we invite God's presence into our decisions, ensuring that our actions align with His will. Prayer also helps us stay focused on the bigger picture, reminding us that we are part of a larger plan and that our steps are leading us towards something greater than ourselves. In addition to prayer, surrounding ourselves with a supportive community can provide the encouragement and accountability needed to take bold steps. When we share our journey with others, we invite them to pray with us, offer guidance, and encourage us when we feel discouraged. Having trusted individuals in our corner can provide the extra strength we need to continue moving forward, even when obstacles arise. Finally, as we move forward in faith, it's important to celebrate the victories, no matter how small. Each step of obedience is a testament to God's faithfulness and His ability to lead us. By recognizing and celebrating these victories, we build momentum and confidence to continue acting on divine guidance. Over time, as we see the fruit of our actions, we become more attuned to God's voice and more confident in taking those bold steps of faith. In the next chapter, we'll look at how to handle the challenges and setbacks that may arise as we act on divine guidance. Even when we follow God's direction, we may encounter obstacles along the way, and it's important to understand how to navigate those moments with grace and trust in God's continued provision. Even with the clearest guidance from God, we can encounter challenges and setbacks that make it seem as though we've lost our way or that God has abandoned us. These moments can be disheartening, and we may question whether we truly heard God's voice. However, it's important to remember that challenges and setbacks are often part of the process of growth and spiritual development. In this chapter, we'll explore how to handle difficulties with resilience, trust, and faith, ensuring that even in the face of obstacles, we can continue to move forward in the direction God has set for us. The first step in overcoming challenges while following divine guidance is to recognize that setbacks do not mean failure. Life is filled with twists and turns, and not every path will be smooth or straightforward. When we encounter obstacles, it's easy to become discouraged and feel as though we've taken a wrong turn. But often, these setbacks are opportunities for God to refine us, strengthen our character, and deepen our faith. Instead of viewing challenges as failures, we can choose to see them as part of God's greater plan, tools He uses to prepare us for what lies ahead. One of the most important attitudes to cultivate in times of difficulty is perseverance. Perseverance is not about avoiding challenges but about continuing to move forward despite them. When we face setbacks, we are given the chance to strengthen our resolve and trust in God's faithfulness. Remember that Jesus Himself faced immense challenges during His time on earth, yet He persevered in His mission. As His followers, we are called to do the same. With perseverance, we continue to take small steps of obedience, even when the road ahead is unclear or difficult. In addition to perseverance, maintaining a spirit of gratitude during setbacks can help us remain focused on God's goodness. It's easy to become consumed by the challenges we face, but when we pause and reflect on the blessings we have, it shifts our perspective. Gratitude allows us to remember that God is always with us, even in the tough times, and that He is working all things together for our good. By choosing to focus on gratitude, we open our hearts to peace and hope, even in the midst of adversity. Prayer continues to be an essential tool during difficult times. When we face setbacks, we can turn to God in prayer, asking for His strength, wisdom, and peace. Prayer helps us process our emotions and recenter ourselves in God's presence. In those moments of frustration or discouragement, we can find comfort in knowing that God is listening and that He understands our struggles. Through prayer, we invite God's presence into our challenges, trusting that He will provide what we need to persevere and continue following His guidance. Another crucial aspect of overcoming setbacks is the support of a community. During difficult times, it's important not to isolate ourselves but to reach out to others for encouragement and prayer. Sharing our struggles with trusted friends, mentors, or members of our faith community can provide the strength we need to keep going. These individuals can offer perspective, remind us of God's promises, and help us see the bigger picture. By surrounding ourselves with a supportive community, we are reminded that we are not alone in our journey and that others are walking alongside us. Finally, we must remember that setbacks are temporary. Even in the midst of hardship, God is at work behind the scenes, orchestrating the events of our lives for His greater purpose. The obstacles we face today may not be permanent, and often, they are the very things that prepare us for the blessings God has in store. By trusting that God is always with us, even in our setbacks, we can maintain hope and continue to move forward, knowing that His plans for us are good. As we wrap up this chapter, remember that setbacks are a natural part of the journey. They do not mean that we are off course or that God's guidance has failed. Instead, they are an invitation to grow in faith, trust, and perseverance. By maintaining a positive attitude, staying connected to God through prayer, and seeking the support of others, we can overcome any challenge and continue to follow God's guidance with confidence. One of the most challenging aspects of following divine guidance is understanding God's timing. We often feel the urge to act immediately when we receive a sense of direction, yet God's timing may not align with our own. This delay can lead to frustration, impatience, or doubt, but it's crucial to understand that God's timing is always perfect. In this chapter, we'll explore the concept of divine timing and how to recognize and trust God's perfect timing in our decisions, relationships, and life changes. The first thing to understand about divine timing is that it is rooted in God's infinite wisdom. While we may see a situation and feel that the time to act is now, God, who sees the beginning from the end, knows exactly when the moment will be right. Our human perspective is limited by time, but God's perspective is not. He works outside of time, and His timing is not governed by the same constraints we experience. This means that even though we may not see immediate results, we can trust that God's timing is leading us in the right direction at the right moment. One of the reasons God's timing often differs from ours is that He is preparing both us and our circumstances for what's to come. Sometimes we receive guidance or sense a call to action, but the situation may not yet be ready for us to take that step. God uses waiting periods to shape our hearts, refine our character, and develop the skills we'll need to navigate what lies ahead. During these waiting times, it's important to trust that God is at work, even if we don't see immediate results. Waiting on God teaches us patience, humility, and the ability to rely fully on His provision. The story of Abraham and Sarah in the Bible is a perfect example of the importance of divine timing. God promised Abraham that he would be the father of many nations, but it took many years before that promise was fulfilled. Abraham and Sarah tried to take matters into their own hands when they grew impatient, but God's plan unfolded in His perfect timing. The birth of Isaac was not just about a child being born. It was about God's promise being fulfilled at the exact right moment. This story reminds us that even when things seem delayed, God is faithful to his promises, and his timing is always worth the wait. A key aspect of recognizing God's timing is learning to be still and patient. The world encourages us to act quickly and take control of situations, but God often calls us to wait and listen. In moments of stillness, we can discern God's voice more clearly and understand his timing more fully. The psalmist says in Psalm 46 verse 10, "Be still and know that I am God." Stillness is not passive. It is an active choice to trust God and his timing. In the quiet moments, we gain clarity about the next steps we should take and when the time is right to move forward. Another way to recognize God's timing is to look for the signs and confirmations he sends our way. When we are in sync with God's will, he often provides us with subtle reminders that we are on the right path. These confirmations can come in the form of conversations, circumstances, or even peace in our hearts. God may not always provide us with a clear, audible answer, but he communicates with us through various channels, showing us that we are following his timing and direction. Trusting in God's timing also requires faith in his perfect plan. It's easy to become frustrated or disheartened when we feel like we're waiting too long, but we must remember that God's plan is always better than our own. The timing of our lives is not an accident but part of a grand design that God has prepared. When we trust in his timing, we demonstrate faith in his sovereignty and love for us. He knows the right moment for everything to unfold, and when we align ourselves with his timing, we position ourselves to receive the fullness of his blessings. In the next chapter, we'll delve into the final steps of embracing divine guidance fully. Recognizing and trusting God's timing is just one piece of the puzzle. The final piece is living out the guidance we receive with confidence and purpose, knowing that we are in the center of God's will for our lives. Now that we've explored the process of recognizing, acting on, and navigating through challenges and setbacks in divine guidance, the final step is to live out that guidance with confidence and purpose. This chapter will focus on how to embody the wisdom and direction we receive from God, ensuring that we don't just passively receive guidance, but actively live it out in every aspect of our lives. When we align our decisions, relationships, and actions with divine guidance, we can experience a deep sense of fulfillment and peace. Living out divine guidance requires a heart that is fully surrendered to God's will. It's easy to say we trust God, but living in a way that reflects that trust is a much more challenging endeavor. Trust is not just about believing God's plan will unfold. It's about actively living in a way that reflects our faith. This means making decisions that align with God's direction, even when they contradict our own desires or the expectations of those around us. It also means being willing to take risks, knowing that God is with us every step of the way. One of the most powerful ways to live out divine guidance is by making our actions match our faith. If we believe that God is calling us to step into a new relationship, career, or opportunity, we must be willing to make the necessary changes in our lives to support that belief. For example, if you've been guided to reconcile with someone, living out that guidance would mean actively taking steps to repair the relationship. It's not enough to simply know what God wants us to do. We must act on it with purpose and resolve. Living out divine guidance with confidence also requires boldness. Sometimes, when we follow God's direction, others may not understand or support our decisions. We may feel the weight of judgment or criticism, and it can be tempting to second-guess ourselves. But confidence comes from knowing that we are walking in alignment with God's will. The Apostle Paul in Romans 8 verse 31 reminds us, "If God is for us, who can be against us?" When we trust in the divine guidance we've received, we can move forward confidently, knowing that God is backing us up. His strength is made perfect in our weakness, and when we lean into his guidance, we walk with the assurance that he is leading us to exactly where we need to be. Purpose is another key element in living out divine guidance. God doesn't just lead us for the sake of leading. He has a purpose for everything he directs us to do. This purpose may not always be immediately apparent, but over time, we begin to see how every step, every relationship, and every decision plays a part in the larger plan he has for us. Embracing our purpose means stepping into the roles and responsibilities God has prepared for us, whether that's in our families, careers, communities, or ministries. Our purpose is not just about fulfilling personal goals. It's about being part of something much larger, God's kingdom and his plan for the world. Another important aspect of living out divine guidance is learning to remain flexible. While we might think we have a clear understanding of where God is leading us, there will always be moments when the path takes unexpected turns. Living with purpose means being adaptable and open to new opportunities that arise along the way. Sometimes, God may open doors that we didn't anticipate, and we must be willing to walk through them. The beauty of living in divine guidance is that it's not about rigidly sticking to a plan but about moving with the flow of God's will, adjusting as needed, and trusting that He is leading us every step of the way. In addition to personal actions, living out divine guidance involves leading by example. As we embrace God's direction in our lives, we become beacons of light for others. Our lives serve as a testimony to the power of divine guidance and the faithfulness of God. When others see us living in alignment with God's will, they are inspired to do the same. Our purpose extends beyond our own personal fulfillment. It also includes showing others the way toward the guidance and love of God. This is how we become not just recipients of divine guidance but also ambassadors of it. Finally, we must remember that living out divine guidance is an ongoing process. It's not about reaching a point of perfection or ultimate success but about continually trusting in God and aligning our lives with His direction. Every day is an opportunity to live in harmony with the guidance we've received, making small adjustments, seeking God's voice, and stepping out in faith. It's a journey, not a destination, and the beauty of it lies in knowing that we are always moving closer to God's perfect plan for us. As we close this journey of understanding and embracing divine guidance, remember that living it out with confidence and purpose brings lasting fulfillment. It transforms not only our lives but also the lives of those around us. The path to living in divine guidance is one of growth, faith, and trust, and when we walk it, we find peace, direction, and purpose.